This is a fake US $100 bill made in Peru. It's so perfect that it passed through ATMs, cash registers, and even Federal Reserve scanners without detection. How Peruvian criminals were able to pump out these fakes at an industrial scale was by using techniques no counterfeiter had ever attempted before. The $100 bill you see here might look like it's printed on paper, but it's actually not. The money in your wallet is actually printed on fabric, 75% cotton, 25% linen, which is why most counterfeiters fail the moment someone touches their work. This barrier defeated counterfeiters for decades until Venezuela's economy collapsed and made their currency worth less than the cotton-linen blend it was printed on. And that's where criminals saw their opportunity. When Venezuelan bolivars crashed from $5 to just 2 cents, criminals realized they could buy 10,000 genuine bills for $200, bills printed on the exact same cotton-linen substrate as U.S. currency. But this genius idea had one massive problem the counterfeiters had to overcome. To make a blank note, the criminals required chemistry precise enough to strip ink without destroying the fabric. Such a solution had to break molecular bonds in printing ink while preserving cotton and linen fibers. Too weak and ghost images of Simon Bolivar remained visible under backlighting. Too strong and the substrate disintegrated into pulp, leaving a window of exactly 11 minutes where the paper could be saved. But time wasn't the only variable they had to account for. Multiple rinse cycles at 72 degrees removed chemical residue that would otherwise react with new inks and create telltale discoloration patterns that scanner algorithms detect instantly. The final pressing stage didn't just remove moisture, but restored the exact thickness of uncirculated U.S. currency, exactly 0.004 of an inch, while creating that distinctive snap that makes real bills spring back when bent. This wasn't producing fake money anymore, but transforming real money from one country into another country's currency, which is why the paper passed every authentication test. The iodine in counterfeit detection pens reacted correctly with genuine cotton fibers. UV lights found no fluorescence because the substrate was authentic. And automated bill validators measured the exact density of real currency paper because that's what it was. Getting the paper was like making a blank canvas, but the criminals still had to make their painting, which forced innovations that would fool millions of Americans. This is where the criminals faced one of their biggest challenges. Genuine U.S. hundreds use intaglio presses that force ink into paper at 20 tons per square inch, creating raised ridges on your fingers instinctively recognized as real money. But the Peruvian operators only had offset lithography machines, the same kind that print magazines, which lay ink on top of paper instead of pressing it in. Their innovative process would stun even veteran Secret Service investigators. The criminals' first printing pass had to nail the background patterns, thousands of lines thinner than human hair that create the shimmer you see when you tilt a real bill. Miss the alignment by even 1/10,000th of an inch and you'll get patterns that scream fake to anyone who's ever handled cash. The master printers running these operations had spent decades calibrating machines for wedding invitations and business cards, skills that they now use to forge the world's most secure currency. After the background, Franklin's portrait came next. And this is where the operation turned from printing to artistry. Under a microscope, a real hundred shows individual beard hairs, skin pores, and even the texture of Franklin's collar. Details invisible to the naked eye, but checked by every bank scanner in America. So the counterfeiters photographed real bills, developed the negatives, then spent hours hand-retouching them under magnification, adding microscopic details the way their fathers once touched up wedding photos. But then there was the issue of serial numbers. Although those patterns of numbers may look random, they're not. Using purely random numbers triggers Federal Reserve alerts while duplicate numbers get flagged instantly. The counterfeiters studied thousands of genuine bills, discovering that bills starting with L came from San Francisco's Federal Reserve, while B meant New York and K meant Dallas. They learned that Series 2013 bills had Treasury Secretary Jack Lew's signature, while Series 2009 had Timothy Geithner's, and that certain serial ranges were issued in specific years. They then created templates that produced numbers that looked real enough to pass, but unique enough to avoid detection. But even with perfect printing on perfect paper, the bills still felt wrong, which led to the breakthrough that changed everything. In a Lima kitchen, someone discovered that flour, carpenter's glue, and water could fool the world. Mix them in exactly the right proportions: 1 part flour, 2 parts glue, 4 parts water, and you get a compound that contracts as it dries, pulling flat paper into ridges that feel exactly like 20 tons of pressure. Too much flour and it cracks. Too much glue and it stays sticky. Too much water and it soaks through the paper. Get all 3 just right, and you've simulated intaglio printing. But just figuring out how to do it right and doing it at scale are 2 different things, which is where these people came in. The workers you see here dipped their fingertips in this mixture and applied it to Franklin's jacket, the security seal, and the serial numbers, everywhere your fingers expect to feel raised printing. After months of practice, their fingers became instruments sensitive enough to detect variations smaller than 1 millimeter, applying exactly the right amount of pressure to create the subtle inconsistencies found in real money. This step turned each one from obvious fake to something that would fool bank tellers who handle thousands of bills daily. The process couldn't be mechanized because machines create patterns that are too perfect and uniform, exactly the kind of consistency that paradoxically screams counterfeit. Real intaglio printing has random variations where pressure meets handmade plates, imperfections that your brain recognizes as authentic even if you don't know why. Making perfect fakes required adding imperfection by hand. It took them 30 minutes per bill. But despite solving this massive hurdle, the criminals had to overcome their most difficult challenge yet, using a method never seen before. Look at a real $100 bill against the light and you'll see a dark line running vertically through it, the security thread that says USA 100 in tiny letters and glows pink under UV light. This thread is embedded when the paper is made, woven into the fibers themselves, impossible to add afterward, unless you're willing to do something nobody thought counterfeiters would ever attempt. The counterfeiters created their own safety strips, thin plastic printed with microscopic USA 100 text and coated with UV reactive chemicals. Then they soaked bills for exactly 4 minutes, just long enough to soften the paper without destroying it, a window discovered through hundreds of ruined attempts. Using surgical needles designed for eye operations and magnifying glasses, workers threaded these strips through the bills, maintaining the exact angle and depth of real security threads. Get the angle wrong by even a few degrees and the thread surfaces too quickly or creates bumps that scanners detect. Thread it too deep and it's invisible. Too shallow and it's obvious. Each bill took 5 to 10 minutes of threading, requiring steady hands, perfect vision, and the patience to repeat the same motion thousands of times. When the bills dried, something remarkable happened. The paper fibers closed around the threads exactly as they would during manufacturing. The threads couldn't be pulled out without destroying the bill. They glowed pink at precisely the right UV wavelength, and they sat at the exact position Federal Reserve specifications required. Even destructive testing by Secret Service labs couldn't tell these hand-sewn threads from manufactured ones. This wasn't mass production anymore. It was craftsmanship at a scale that shouldn't have been possible. And soon, these criminal gangs turned this illegal art form into a full-fledged mint that could rival any in the U.S. By 2015, the hand-stitching technique had transformed from kitchen experiment to industrial process. Single facilities in Lima ran 6 offset presses simultaneously, churning out 2,000 sheets per hour, 4 bills per sheet, 48,000 potential bills every day. But potential isn't profit. Quality control destroyed 90% of everything printed because one bad bill traced back could destroy an entire operation. The workforce operated like a Swiss watch. printers maintaining microscopic tolerances, chemists matching Federal Reserve ink specifications, threaders performing their 5-minute surgery on each bill, finishers applying texture compound with practiced fingers. This assembly line produced 5,000 perfect bills weekly, generating $85,000 in profit from warehouses that looked identical to legitimate businesses. With more than 50 operations running simultaneously across the city, Lima was flooding America with $80 million in fake currency every year. And that massive scale is exactly what would destroy them, because every offset press leaves a signature that's as unique as a fingerprint. Every time you operate an offset press, it leaves tiny imperfections invisible to the naked eye, but consistent across everything it prints. Secret Service investigators examining seized bills under electron microscopes found their smoking gun. A gap measuring 0.03 of a millimeter next to Franklin's left eye, appearing on bills from Miami, New York, Los Angeles, all from the same source. This microscopic flaw became a map as investigators built databases tracking every bill, every location, every date, until patterns emerged that revealed the entire network. Miami on Tuesdays, New York on Thursdays, Los Angeles on Mondays. Someone was running a distribution schedule as regular as FedEx. Then DEA agents busting a shipment from Lima found $2 million in fake hundreds with that same gap, revealing that smuggling routes and counterfeit routes were connected. Now investigators knew exactly where to look. They monitored flights from Lima, tracked known trafficking organizations, watched currency exchanges, and sent undercover agents posing as buyers into the network. One distributor, comfortable after too many deals, bragged about grandmother's sewing circle producing the world's best counterfeits, not knowing he just confirmed the hand-stitching intelligence that investigators could barely believe. Phone intercepts revealed the rest. Coded conversations about packages and documents, specific Lima addresses, intentions of major shipments, and an entire shadow industry mapped through patient surveillance. By November 2016, investors had identified 54 locations connected to 6 criminal organizations, and now it was time to move before they could scatter into the wind. At 4:30 in the morning on November 15, 2016, 1,500 Peruvian National Police officers prepared to execute 54 simultaneous raids across Lima. Any delay, any leak, and evidence would disappear. Bills would burn, suspects would vanish. 18 months of investigation would be worthless. At 5:30 a.m., they moved. The first location looked like any suburban home until officers found the basement. $30 million in counterfeit hundreds stacked floor to ceiling. Enough fake money to fill a swimming pool, all bearing that telltale gap next to Franklin's eye. The homeowner stood up from his breakfast table, resigned, knowing this day would eventually come. The second location's presses were still warm, bills hanging from drying lines like laundry, the air thick with the smell of ink. In the back room, officers found a worker frozen mid-stitch, surgical needle halfway through a bill, caught in the act of threading a security strip. The third location revealed the operation's scale: 8 offset presses, 1,600 printing plates, gallons of color-shifting ink, thousands of bleached Venezuelan bills, and most remarkably, a child's notebook containing handwritten formulas for everything: the exact bleaching times, the texture-mixture ratios, even the thread insertion angles. By noon, the numbers defied belief. $30 million in counterfeit dollars, 50,000 in fake euros, 48 arrests, 6 criminal organizations destroyed. The Secret Service called it their largest seizure ever, proof that international cooperation could defeat even the most sophisticated counterfeiters. Except 3 months later, new bills appeared with the same quality and the same microscopic flaw. The notebook they seized was just one copy of knowledge that had already spread through Lima like recipes passed between neighbors. Venezuelan bolivars still cost 2 cents, offset presses remain legal, and poverty still makes crime pay better than honest work. Right now, as you watch this, someone in Lima is threading a needle through wet paper and someone else is mixing flour with glue. Because of this, Peru still produces 60% of the world's counterfeit U.S. currency. Bills so perfect, they're circulating right now in stores, banks, ATMs, maybe even your wallet. The $100 you withdrew from the ATM, if it feels real, looks real, and spends real, does it matter that someone in Lima spent 10 minutes threading a security strip through it by hand? Bye for now.